And now, your hosts, Mike Jarek and Juliet Honey.
I do remember that. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. And Jay.
We have a college here. We'll talk to them in a second. But first of all, going to start the show with some tragic news.
Yeah.
You probably heard about this over the weekend for hip-hop star Kanye West.
Yeah, one of the rapper's closest confidants has died, and to compound his pain, it seems her untimely death could have been avoided.
Hey, Nana, I wanna scream so loud for you, 'cause I'm so proud of you.
This is Kanye West singing on his 2005 CD entitled Late Registration about his real-life inspiration, his mother, Donda West. Now it is being revealed the 58-year-old mom of one of hip-hop's most successful moguls may have ignored a doctor's warning about the dangers of her having cosmetic surgery because it could lead to a heart attack.
I spoke to her about 2 weeks ago, and she was supposed to see the internist for the medical clearance, the internist that I had recommended that I work with, but she never followed through as far as I know.
Before that conversation, Dr. Andre Abulian of Beverly Hills was allegedly set to perform a tummy tuck and a breast reduction on Kanye's mom, but Dr. Abulian didn't hear from her. He wanted to make sure that she had a cardiac stress test before the operation. Instead, it seems, she went to someone else for her surgery. Some people apparently mistakenly think of cosmetic surgery as less complicated, but doctors warn that things can go wrong in any procedure. In 2004, best-selling author of The First Wives Club, Olivia Goldsmith, died during a chin tuck at a Manhattan hospital. As this doctor points out, the dangers always exist.
Whether it be elective or non-elective. I mean, every time you have a procedure done, and, you know, cosmetic surgery is no different than other surgeries in that it's still a real bona fide surgery, things can happen.
Critics say vanity is the primary motivation for the procedures, as seen in this clip from Nip Tuck.
When you stop striving for perfection, you might as well be dead.
They say most don't really need the operations and should not take the risks. But for Kanye West, it will never matter why his mom wanted what she did, only that she was who she was.
Oh, it's awful.
It's just horrible. Here to talk about this and the risk involved in cosmetic surgery is plastic surgeon Dr. Stephen Davis.
We also have family practitioner Dr. Catherine London joining us, and attorney David Schwartz is here, and we'll get to the legal ramifications of this case as well. But, Doctor, let's start with you. Tummy tuck and breast reduction at the same time, is that something that is common?
No. It's really actually a huge surgical procedure, either one of them by themselves, and when you put them both together, it's a really big stress to the body. And again, when you start to think about people that come to plastic surgeons a lot of times, many times you're thinking that their lifestyle isn't that healthy to begin with, because that may be one of the reasons why they're trying to get a quick fix from these procedures. So I think it's incumbent upon the plastic surgeons to really evaluate that patient from a medical standpoint and make sure that they're going back to see their family doctor or their internist to make sure this whole thing is really going to be as safe as possible.
It's too early for all the facts to come out, and they will over the next few weeks, of course. It sounds as if her first doctor had really begged her to have a cardiac stress test. She's 58 years old.
Right.
And you almost have to do that, don't you, before plastic surgery of any kind?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good reasons about doing things like this in a hospital setting is because you have multiple checkpoints. So from a plastic surgeon's perspective, somebody comes in and you say, yeah, you know what, that sounds like a great surgical procedure.
Sure.
But now we're going to not only send you back to your internist, but we're also going to go to the hospital where the anesthesia team is going to take a look at your labs and all your other medical history to say, you know what, maybe we need another test. Maybe we need to do something else to make sure that you really are that healthy of a candidate to have this done.
There are probably a lot of people who are watching this right now who are thinking about getting plastic surgery. Tell us some of the issues that come into play. Age comes into play in what way? I'm hearing the magic number 40.
Well, the reason why that happens is we try to get an EKG, lab work, and all those things so that we're really making this surgery like a wonderful experience for them. It's supposed to be something that could be like a...
25-year-old is going to get an EKG?
No.
Okay.
That's why I think from a hospital standpoint, many times they set criteria like they say at 40, this is what you need to do. outside the hospital, a lot of things can be done in a doctor's office or other areas that may not have that same strict type of recommendations for things. But going back to what you were saying before, I think the surgical procedures that are being done now really have to be refined to such a point that you can actually have multiple procedures like this if you really are that healthy of a candidate to do it. She was 58. I don't really know all about her past medical history or anything like that, but I think having an EKG or having a stress test and things like that doesn't sound...
Speaking about medical history, how do you know if somebody's lying or not? Because they fill out the form.
You know, one of the checkpoints, one of the things that we do...
Out of embarrassment, maybe. No, I took drugs, or I smoked too much, blah, 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 blah.
But you know what? That's a great question. I think what ends up happening is you have the patient fill out a patient form.
Sure.
Then the nurse asks them a question. Then the doctor asks them a question. Then when they go to the hospital, those same exact boring questions get asked a million times.
Is it
and
that,
the reason
or
for
is
that,
it that people just get really freaked out when you say, okay, the doctor says, oh, how many drinks do you have a week? You know, and it's like, well, you know, 1 to 2.
Well, but then when
there isn't anything more than that.
But I think as it gets closer and closer to the surgery, it gets to be like, if I'm lying about this, God forbid something's bad.
That's why you've got to have the blood test and go to that internist before you go to the plastic surgeon, right, Kathleen?
Okay, so there's the issue. The standard of care, men over 40, women over 50 need an EKG, need certain blood work, need to be evaluated. Your primary care physician, your family doctor, is the one who knows you, knows if you have diabetes, if you're overweight, if you're not exercising. That's the person who's going to be able to advise you better. Is it worth dying?
Get clearance from them first.
But can you explain this whole, when you lie to your doctor about how many drinks you've had, or whether you take, you know, you do
what drugs. Supplements are you taking? What medications?
What does that do?
Right.
Give me an example.
Okay, so you can, all surgery has the risks of bleeding, infection, blood clots, all these things. When you take supplements, they can interact with the anesthesia, with the surgery. So that can affect you. You can die. You know, if you're taking any medications, if you're taking drugs, if you're not telling me how much you drink, your liver's not going to work the same way. You will not process anesthesia the same way. We have Olivia Goldsmith, who died on the table a few years ago. You know, another
she wrote
famous
that book, The First Wives Club.
Which got made into a movie, The First Wives Club. And, you know, for a chin tuck, that wasn't even a big procedure. Things happen. The risk is not zero.
If you go under, there's a chance you could not wake up. In any surgery.
In any surgery.
And it has nothing to do with money, apparently. Both these women had a lot of money.
Right. I mean, and when you look at the surgery complications, when we talk about the overall risks in plastic surgery being around 1%, overall risks, not risk of dying, you know, it's 1 in 100. That's with a good surgeon at a reputable place. Whether it's a hospital or surgery center doesn't seem to make a huge difference. But the point being, then if you're going to somebody less reputable, those risks are much higher.
Of course, David. Now, the whole question about legal ramifications starts to come up, whether or not there will be any lawsuits filed against the doctor. Do they have a case here? What's your feeling?
I think the doctors have just laid out the legal standards. So the legal standard is what is reasonable within the medical community. How would a reasonable plastic surgeon operate under these set of circumstances? And we're hearing that clearly there should have been a pre-op done. There should have been the internist should have evaluated the patient. And we have these cases, these high press cases that bring to light this situation.
What if the patient isn't telling the truth?
Okay,
we're not accusing doctors.
And we don't know if a pre-op wasn't done.
Okay, that could play a role in the case, but the doctor still has an obligation to do the due diligence, to do the pre-op, to make the patient see the internist, to see if there's any pre-existing conditions. And this pre-existing condition argument could be argued both ways. The defense is going to argue, well, the pre-existing was the cause of death. So they're going to make a causation argument when the plaintiffs are going to say, wait a second, there was a pre-existing condition. You should have never have done the surgery in the first place.
No matter what happened, it is a tragedy. The West family has not talked publicly about the cause of Donda's death, but did release this statement. Kanye West, his family and friends would like to thank everyone for the outpouring of support and kind words that have come in from across the country since the death of his mother, Dr. Donda West, and she was an English professor. And
also Dr. Adams had this to say, we're not going to get to that? We are going to get to that, all right. About Dr. Aboulian. That was the initial doctor.
Right.
So Dr. Adams did the surgery. Dr. Aboulian was the doctor who was consulted initially for the surgery. He said, go to an internist, and we don't know what happened with that, but this is what the second doctor said, who actually performed the surgery, a statement given to TMZ.com. He is sleazy. Dr. Abulian, is sleazy and manipulating the truth to elevate his own importance.
I tell you this, Dr. Jan Adams is highly respected, trained at Harvard. You saw him on Oprah probably quite a few times. He's on the Discovery Channel before and after that show.
That's one of the issues, though, I think that we're talking about, is that this kind of thing can happen to anyone, and especially if you're going for a trained plastic surgeon, that's really what you're trying to do. It's just that you have to really be careful with combining procedures and really taking risks.
A lot of great information in these past 10 minutes, so we're going to put this segment onto our website, mnjshow.com, so you can look at it again, and we'll also give you some more information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next this morning.